He's tanned, he's rested, he's ready. He's Luke Willson, and he's back for Luke Who's Talking, and we couldn't be happier as NFL free agency begins. There's no one else we'd want to talk to about it. First of all, how have you been, pal? You've been traveling a little bit. You've been hanging out a little bit. Are you feeling refreshed?
Yeah, you could say that. You know, it's been a bit of a tumultuous travel period for me. A couple small/medium incidences have arisen, but we're alive. We're ripping, Jay.
I love it. I love it. We're alive
Perhaps
and well.
I'm missing an appendix, perhaps, but that is what it is.
Yeah, and again, so you had to have, let's just get into it very briefly. You had to have appendix surgery while you were on a trip in Spain where you were supposed to be cycling, and I understand that the hospital situation was tough because no one spoke English because it was Spain.
Yeah, it was a great hospital. People were amazing, but it was a bit strange when I was like, do I need surgery? Do I not need surgery? And the doctor came in and said, very bad. Surgery, 2 hours, and then walked out of the room. I was like, can I get a little more, But all in all, things worked out.
Okay, I'm happy to see that you look good. You look rested. Hopefully you're doing okay. I know Tua Tagovailoa is doing okay. He's still going to be making a ton of money from the Miami Dolphins, but they do cut him on Monday. Are you surprised? We expected them to cut him perhaps, but that almost $100 million cap hit, I mean, that is a lot to swallow. Any surprise at all, Luke, that the Dolphins decided to eat that money?
Yeah, the sticker shock is nuts, Jay. $99 million. When you put that in perspective, it's just so hard to fathom. And I think the shock as well for me comes from the fact that, a couple years ago, this guy was a potential future face of the league. And now Miami can't get rid of him fast enough, despite owing him, again, this crazy amount of money. But what I'll say is this. It's a copycat league, Jay. You've heard me talk about that when it comes to plays, when it comes to offensive schemes, defensive schemes. And what you got here is, in my opinion, the next step of the Denver Broncos. Denver, I believe it was $85 million of dead cap from the Russell Wilson situation. And as we all know, last year they were the 1 seed and made it to the AFC Championship. And I'm sure in their minds, if they had a healthy quarterback, they perhaps would have been in the Super Bowl. So I have a feeling that, Miami sees that situation. Granted, this is more money, but they say, okay, Denver's done it. Let's cut, the situation. We don't think it's going to work, and let's move on. And they did with Malik Willis.
Okay, so now Tua goes to the Atlanta Falcons, who that is a fascinating quarterback room. Kirk Cousins is gone, but Michael Penix Jr. is still there, just drafted a couple of seasons ago, presumably the guy of the future. How do you see this all fitting in Atlanta?
So, Jay, I think right now, the big talk is like, oh, will it fit in Atlanta? As a guy who my last year signed a vet minimum deal, those things are garbage. There's literally no protection whatsoever. So for Atlanta right now, you sign a vet minimum deal. None of it's going to be guaranteed, or I should say a very small amount. You get to see Tua for a full offseason. Can somebody in that building recapture what Tua was able to do a few years back? You get the whole offseason, different, change of scenery, different setting, different guys he's throwing the football to. He does come off to me as a good leader, a veteran guy. So you also, have somebody potentially mentor, your young quarterback in Penix. But that being said, if it doesn't work out, you're on the hook for nothing. It's a vet minimum deal. You get him out of the building and you move on. So for Atlanta, to me, this is a no-brainer. At this price tag, if there's someone else you want along the way here, you can bump to the third string. Again, there's really no risk for Atlanta. So I like the signing. And I think it's going to be a lot of how does Tua react in this new system. And the upside's huge and the downside's very minimal for the Falcons.
It'll be fascinating to watch them this upcoming season. Luke, let's talk about your Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks, who were able to re-sign Rashid Shaheed, but it's a big loss as well on Monday. They lose their Super Bowl MVP running back, Kenneth Walker III. First of all, how surprised were you that the Seahawks let Walker go, and how do you think this will affect the team coming into this season?
It's a big loss. But that being said, I still think they're the team to beat. going into the year. Listen, if you look at last season, Jay, really towards the meat of the end of the season, it was a split backfield. Charbonnet and Walker, and both guys are great. And I think they're both a different running style, but they love Zach Charbonnet. So how he comes off this injury, clearly they feel pretty good about that. This is a huge price tag, and I think Kenneth Walker deserves every bit of it. But that being said, if you look at the way the Seahawks team is constructed, the fact that JSN is going to get paid down the road, I get why they let this guy walk for this price tag. Again, it's not a shot at Kenneth Walker. I think he's an unbelievable back. But do I put him in let's say, a top 5 running back in this league? I personally don't. So that's where it gets a little, gray for Seattle, where he's done so many great things. We obviously are fresh off the Super Bowl MVP performance. But as far as guys you want to pay, in that locker room on that team, I think he kind of fell down the list, and that's why Kansas City was able to pick him up.
Okay, and speaking of Kansas City, Luke, so you get Walker. You also bring back Travis Kelce for another season, which I think a lot of people didn't know if that was going to happen or not, so that's great news for them. The bad news is, of course, Patrick Mahomes' ACL injury that he suffered back in December. We don't know exactly when he'll be back yet, but let's assume he's back and healthy at some point. Would you consider this team a legitimate contender again with Walker in the fold?
Absolutely, Jay. Absolutely. Yeah, you look at this team right now, and there's some legal stuff with Rashee Rice. See how that kind of falls out. But it's like you've got Worthy, you've got Rashee Rice. I still think Travis Kelce is a weapon. Is he the best tight end in the league at this point? No, but he's still a premier guy who has a ton of experience. So that's a pretty good, triple threat right there. Now you have a runner like Kenneth Walker that is as elusive as he is. They have not had a runner like that in a long, long time. The run game has struggled. All of a sudden, if you can give Patrick Mahomes a, consistent run game, what is he going to be able to do? I still think they're a contender. Are they my favorite going into the year? No. But that being said, you look at last season, kind of strange for them because usually they win one possession games. They lost a lot of one possession games. Teams can kind of come off a bad year like that. Clearly, this signing has said that the front office is trying to win now. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Steve Spagnuolo defense, absolutely they are a contender.
Luke, one of my favorite football players the last decade or so is the future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, who is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers legend, to be sure. And he's the kind of player, Luke, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I just thought Mike Evans is going to play with the Bucs forever, and he's going to retire as a Buc, and he'll never leave that team. And so it was the most shocking news of the day for me, for sure, to see him not only sign with San Francisco, but for a few years. And I loved what he said. He said, I just wanted a new challenge. I love that from a veteran like that. But how do you see the fit with Shanahan's squad?
Yeah, I'll say this, Jay. On paper, I think it's unbelievable. This guy is a star. You said it. I'm in the same boat. I kind of thought he'd be a career Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Obviously, he's made the trek over to the West Coast. You look at this situation. He's going to come in. He's going to be their number one guy. They've got a $50 million quarterback in Brock Purdy. They've got arguably the best offensive mind in the game in Kyle Shanahan. You've got a great tight end. You have a premier guy who, as we saw last year, is still doing it in CMC at the running back position. So it's going to be hard to get, double coverage or bracketed for Mike Evans. He should be able to come out here and catch a ton of balls. So I love this for the Niners. I think especially with their defense getting healthy, they're an absolute wagon and are a contender. But Jay, this is the only thing that I get a little bit nervous if I'm a Niners fan right now. This team, I would say, is older and very, very injury prone. You look at Kittle, who to me is one of the most complete tight ends ever, but he's kind of been bitten by the injury bug. CMC came off a great year last year, but the year before that, we all remember he missed some time. Their offensive line, Trent Williams, has missed some time. The receiver room has been very, very banged up at times. They just went and got an older, somewhat injury-prone receiver to add to that list. So it's a bit of a strange one for me because at first glance, I'm like, wow, what a tremendous signing, Hall of Fame guy in Kyle Shanahan's offense. But does it do well for me as far as the 3-year deal? Do I think he'll be healthy for all 3 years? Time will tell. I get a little nervous about that, and I think it's a very short-sighted signing for the 49ers.
Speaking of wide receivers, Luke, and how they might fit in with their new team, we know the Bills were quiet on Monday, but last week they made a huge splash. They acquired DJ Moore from the Bears. The Mafia just crying for a talented wide receiver, as you know. There's no question he is that, but how do you see him as a fit with his team? Was he the right wide receiver for Josh Allen and company?
Jay, I like the signing. I think DJ Moore is incredibly talented. I'll start with the positives. Obviously, when him and Joe Brady were together before, he had a tremendous year. As far as is he the right guy, Jake, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Get this guy a perennial star. You want to know what would have been a great fit? Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get a guy where it's like Josh Allen can come in here and just throw him 50-50 balls. They can dare it up. A veteran guy who has been there, done that, and put those numbers up. Again, you've heard me say it time and time again. If not now, then when? I look at Kansas City. We just talked about them. What do they do during this period? First thing, go pay Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, a crazy amount of money because they realize this is the time. Patrick Mahomes is only going to be Patrick Mahomes for X amount of years. It's like, man, every year with Buffalo, they kind of dip their toe in, but they're afraid to cannonball in. That's the way I see it. And I'm happy they signed DJ Moore. I think he's going to make their team a lot better, but I don't think it's enough. When you look at some of the other teams in this division, in this conference, and what they're doing and really in the league, it's like an arms race. They're loading up here. And it just feels like Buffalo never really commits to doing that. And I'm not sure why.
I got to end with one of your favorites, Aaron Rodgers. We don't know for sure, Luke Willson. We don't know for sure if he'll return to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season. But if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers, would you be waiting for him?
I would. I have mixed emotions about this one, Jay. I don't know what your better option is. So am I excited in my waiting for Aaron? Probably not. If I'm a Steelers fan, the idea of Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers, I think they can get you to the playoffs. You saw that last year. I think that, they can pull a couple upsets, but as far as being a top 3 team that's going to go to the Super Bowl, I don't think they're close yet. Now, Pittman today, obviously that's a big signing. I think that really helps the situation. But you asked me would I wait for him? I would, because who else are you going to get? Kirk Cousins is potentially available. I'd probably still take an Aaron in that situation. So I do believe that Aaron Rodgers is your best bet for this year. But at some point, Jay, the Steelers need to look beyond, 1 year at a time and think to myself, how do we get back to a point where we are a legitimate contender, not we're scraping into the playoffs and hoping to upset everybody.
Luke, we hope the appendix issue is all healed up. Don't work out too hard. Go light, maybe some light jogging, speed bag, nothing too aggressive in terms of weights. And just rest up, buddy, and we can't wait to see you in studio soon.
Yeah, I'll be back soon. I appreciate that, Jay. It's great seeing you.
Thanks, pal.